Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more. And many more. And many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues Black Table Talk. So glad to have you all with us. I know that these platforms are doing what they want to do, and so I'm going to go ahead and begin sharing this morning. And hopefully, you will either catch me in real time as the broadcast lets you know that I'm live, or you will be able to catch the replay. Again, I want to say thank you so much for your time and attention before we get started. Thank you to the replay viewers. Thank you to those who will like, who will subscribe, who will share the channel. I spent last week having to deal with an emergency with my family. So I was not on for a couple of days on last week. And then Monday was a holiday, and I was continuing to work through that emergency with my family member. And we have gotten them situated. And so I will be traveling down to visit them and check on them today. As a Black woman in America, you know what's going on in all of these uh, economic streets. As a Black woman in America, I am never going to turn down any donation. So if you want to support the broadcast, you like what we're doing here, you want to subscribe to our Facebook, or you want to subscribe to our Patreon is patreon.com/daring dialogues, all one word. Our Cash App is $Life Nation. Or if you want to subscribe to the YouTube page, we do have a subscription there that is less than the cost of a cup of coffee on a monthly basis. So either one of those platforms would be very helpful. As promised, we said that we were going to start reading from Black AF History. A lot of people have been talking about this book and Michael Harriot's very specific and comical way of dealing with the ins and outs of our history, giving us some good breakdowns and telling it as only a storyteller can tell it. And so we said that we were going to be sharing from his book, and that's where we're going to be reading from today. I am not going to start at his introduction, although I would encourage people to go back and read it if you have the physical book, or you have if you're reading from Libby app, if you have audio book. Definitely you don't want to skip the introduction because it is quite comical. But we're starting at his first chapter entitled Earth, Wind, and America. There's a lot going on in our world today, and one of the things that we strive to do with this platform is we strive to educate, we strive to inform. And so if you're watching me here on Facebook, you're watching me here on YouTube, either platform, we do thank you for tuning in. But our main goal here is to educate and to inform. It might get entertaining at times, especially if you're on my Facebook page with our memes and some of the things that we put out. But the overall goal is to, again, educate and inform. So let's start with his first chapter here, Earth, Wind, and America. I'm going to be reading probably for about 15 to 20 minutes. And feel free to drop some comments if you're finding something interesting about the reading or you have a question about something that he's saying. Feel free to drop it in the comments and we'll see if we can get to it once we are done. We do have a talk back session, so after I'm done reading, I will open it up for comments and questions. All right. Earth, Wind, and America. Welcome to your live audiobook reading. I'm your host, Shantae Charles. I have an uncle named James. For most of my life, I had no idea his name was James. To me, he was Uncle Junior. James Harriet Jr. was alternately a salesman of marijuana, a Black Panther, a Vietnam veteran, and a trusted deacon in his church. He knew things, a lot of things, like how to use a bandsaw or bait a hook with a live worm. He was infinitely more complex than that, but to me at age 10, that was the essence of my Uncle Junior. One sweltering summer day, I was visiting his house, which sat on a pond with actual peacocks running around in the yard, playing outside with my cousin. We asked Uncle Junior for some water, and he made us stand on the porch and drink it, ensuring that we were not committing the ultimate sin of Black households, running in and out that door. When he collected the drinking glasses, I remember looking through the screen door, watching him put on a record on the turntable. I can never forget the music that came out. He said their names were Earth, Wind, and Fire. I want to say that Earth, Wind, and Fire is the greatest band in history, but there might be white people reading this book, and I wouldn't want to cause any Beatles fans to have a conniption. I honestly don't know what a conniption is, but my Uncle Junior said it a lot. All I know is that it is a medical emergency that is nearly as dangerous as a hissy fit, which is the deadliest kind of fit. But this is not the time for that. This is the time for understanding that Earth, Wind, and Fire is basically Jesusless gospel music. I'm willing to bet you aren't aware of just how many Earth and Wind and Fire songs you know, because they are as ubiquitous as church hymns. And to top it off, they had the three elements of all great Black music. Number one, they wore jumpsuits. All great music acts must wear jumpsuits. It is a mandate passed down from the godfather of soul's backing band, the JBs. Since then, if you want to be great, there must be a point in your career where you must dress like a NASCAR crew that fell in a vat of sequins and rhinestones. Many people wonder why Andre 3000 dressed so weird, but I saw Outkast in concert last summer, and Dre dressed exclusively in jumpsuits, and I realized y'all won't let him be great. Falsetto, Prince, Eddie Kendricks, Michael Jackson, Philip Bailey. All great Black singers must have an extra octave that is reserved for the Holy Ghost and heartbreak. You know, you got to reach up there and say, aye, right? Three, a horn section. I don't care what kind of music you are playing. The fact is, everything sounds better with a horn section. Everything. Now, my husband would actually agree with this. He's a trumpet player, flugelhorn player, and a tenor sax player. And I'm going to have to agree that everything sounds better with a horn section. Everyone since the beginning of time knows it. Ask Joshua how he brought down the walls of Jericho. Ask a soldier what instrument he once played at his funeral. Ask Jesus what sound will signal his return. Uncle Junior loved Earth, Wind, and Fire, which of course meant that I became obsessed with Earth, Wind, and Fire. And according to him, the only proper way to listen to the elements was on a vinyl or vinyl. Of course, he owned compact discs and cassettes and even had an 8-track tape player. But for my eldest uncle, Earth, Wind, and Fire albums should only be played in the purest form from beginning to end. Luckily, my favorite EWF tune was the second song on the first side of their album, That's the Way of the World. Have you ever heard That's the Way of the World? If you are Black, the answer is yes. If you've ever been to a cookout, the answer is yes. If you have an aunt who owns a leather miniskirt or a leopard print blouse, the answer is yes. If you've ever smelled incense burning in a room with a ceiling fan, the answer is yes. To this day, every time I hear it, I remember what joy sounds like, what love tastes like, what home feels like. All of a sudden, I'm a kid again, standing on my uncle's porch, listening to my aunts tell stories through the screen door while my Uncle Junior explained the way of the world. Perhaps the only thing Uncle Junior loved more than the group he called the Elements was correcting people's stories. Whenever my family members gathered, the children would usually sit on the floor while the adults entertained each other with stories that stretched back generations. And without a doubt, every time somebody got creative with their version of an event, Junior was there to make sure the truth was told. How many of us have those truth tellers in our family still today? When my mother recounted the tale of the time Uncle Junior brought home a skittish black cat and hid it in the bathroom closet so my grandparents wouldn't know about it, and how that cat went on out to leap in the middle of the night and nearly claw her to death, Uncle Junior reminded her that the cat was technically more of a midnight gray, and in reality, it barely scratched her. When my Aunt Marvell delighted us with the story of how my grandfather saved an entire family from a blazing house fire, he would interrupt to point out it was mostly smoke and very few flames. He would eventually take over the story and tell it with less hyperbole, yet still he would somehow make his version the more interesting one. He was a living, breathing fact checker. Every family needs one. A human footnote with impeccable storytelling technique. It was his passion. Uncle Junior wasn't necessarily a killjoy either. He was just someone who was a concern about the fidelity of family stories as he was about imparting the history of sound of God's house band. Knowing this, I would sometimes use this particular idiosyncrasy to endear myself to him. If Uncle Junior was not at a family gathering, I would call him up afterward and regurgitate the stories back to him while he made his corrections. I trusted his version would be the definitive version and definitely more interesting. But truthfully, I didn't really care about the family epics as much as I enjoyed hearing him attempt to rectify the misrepresented facts. Not only was it hilarious to me, but it gave me a chance to have one on one time with my uncle. This ongoing habit didn't just strengthen my storytelling muscle and inform me about my family, it also taught me not to trust anyone's version of history unless I corroborated it with an independent source, which ironically enough is the same method I use to learn the story of America. I really love the way he is tying his own family stories into how he's going to be narrating this book. Put in the chat or put or hit the stars or the like if you have family members that you consider to be the family storyteller or the family griot who remembers every event, every date. They can recall things back decades and decades, but they're your elders, right? And they are sort of the family historians or the family storytellers and story keepers. They can remember the deaths and the funerals, the weddings, the anniversaries. They can tell you who's doing what and who's related to who. We need those people in our families. We need our storytellers. And for me, when one of those storytellers is not feeling well, or one of those storytellers is not doing so good health wise, I get concerned because I'm like, listen, we've got to keep our storytellers alive. There's a saying that says, when your elders die, a library burns down. And I often encourage people that if you have your elders, 60 and above, um, you need to be recording their stories, not just their stories, but your family history. You need to be recording in some way, shape, or form, whether you're writing it down, whether you're videoing it, whether you are doing, the handheld recorders, try to record your family history as they recall it and as they remember it in as many avenues as possible. We're seeing right now the erasure of our history in real time. And the reality is, as he said, we can't just trust everybody's version of our story. This is so on time for where we are in this nation. So even with your own personal history and data and facts, make sure that you are journaling, make sure you are recording, make sure you are writing down your story from your point of view and your lens, because nobody can tell it like you can tell it. And so he begins. The true origin story of America is intriguing enough without embellishment. A tale that includes cannibalism, cross-country adventures, and the type of brazen incompetency that almost doomed this experiment in thievery. But of course, to save face and maximize profits, the story was revised until we ended up with the swashbuckling blockbuster we now know, filled with idealistic, barrel-chested white saviors who immaculately conceived of a brand new kind of democracy with nothing but a few muskets and abundance of caucasity. Sprinkle in a few pilgrims, a handful of savage Indians, as they say, and for diversity's sake, a few Black characters who learned the value of hard work through 400 years of free labor, and you've got yourself a hit. Well, that is the America that they want you to believe. An America that doesn't offend the sensibilities of those who would go to our museums and not understand that our history is not just the accomplishments and the achievements, but it's also what we suffered through and survived from the Middle Passage on to get to those accomplishments and achievements. My words. Back to Michael's. The account of America's creation, you probably learned, starred a group of Englishmen we now call the Jamestown settlers. Now, I've got my own stories about Jamestown, but if you have not been to Jamestown, I would probably say it's one of the more important places to go in America. So if you're thinking about traveling this year, you're not done with your vacation time and all of that, I recommend that you go to Jamestown. Um, there's two types of spirits you're going to find there. You're going to find the spirit of colonialism. You're going to feel like you're back in 1619. I'm just going to be honest with you. There are some contemporary parts of Jamestown, but then there are definitely, I could feel the oppression of 1619 in Jamestown. I'm not going to lie to you. Jamestown, Yorktown, Williamsburg, that triangular, area, you can feel the oppression there. As a matter of fact, some people there still think that we're in 1619, so try to avoid them at all costs. um, but when I was there in Jamestown, I not only felt that, but there is a strong presence of the ancestors in Jamestown. And that was the thing that really stuck with me and made an imprint on me, was that I could feel the presence of the ancestors there, and I could feel their hope there. I could feel their sense of pride about how far we as a people have come. I can't really describe it more than that. You would just have to go in order to understand the feeling. But definitely go to Jamestown. Definitely go to the actual settlement. Um, they have a demonstration there where one of the first people that arrived out of the 20, there's a Black woman there who does the enactment of that person. And so she's telling the story from her point of view. It's a very, very powerful. So I would recommend going. Now, back to the reading. In the Safe for Work fairy tale edition of the History of America, The English were a mighty empire who forged a new nation out of clay and ingenuity. But had my Uncle Junior lived back then, he would have been like, those guys? Mighty? Nah. During their time, these so called adventurers had garnered an international reputation for being unsuited for manual labor, let alone planning a whole new society. Do not obtain your slaves from Britain, wrote Roman consul Cicero, because they are so stupid and so utterly incapable of being taught that they are not fit to form a part of the household of Athens. So if you had any questions about the competency, okay, this is historical record. Roman consul Cicero writes this about enslaving people from Britain. He's saying they're incapable of being taught. I want you to think about that. Okay. This incompetency would create the need for a transnational human trafficking infrastructure, as well as a reasonably believable cover story to justify the intergenerational dehumanization and theft committed by the so called enlightened ones. Now, I want to point out here, because this week I had someone come onto my page and it was under the question that has now gone viral. If you haven't been on my Facebook page, Black Table Talk, you can find the question. But the question has now gone viral. Hey, white people, tell us what you have learned about Black history that has been, you found out about it and it was an atrocity. And this man came onto the page and he said, well, Black people weren't the first slaves. And I said, okay, that's world history. Because most of us know, at least I would hope, most of us know that Black people weren't the first slaves. But can you tell us something that you found out about Black history? Not, well, and then he tried to go on and say, well, slavery wasn't this and slavery was. Sir, most of us know that Black people were not the first slaves. But here's what made America slavery a little bit different from other slavery happening in the world. One, other people who were engaging in slavery, their enslaved persons had rights. Yeah, they had rights. Two, they really likely either engaged in enslavement as capture and prisoners of war or indentured servitude, which is a temporary form of enslavement. But when you get to America, you get to slavery into perpetuity. That means you forever and anything that comes out of you forever, and anything that comes out of them forever, and anything that comes out of them forever. Into perpetuity. That was not the case with other countries that were engaging in enslavement. That was an American brand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the other part, being numbered with the cattle and the furniture, because you're not seen as a human being or even seen as having a soul. Those are very distinctive to American slavery. So I don't let people try to convince me that American slavery was like everything else that was going on in the world, because the devil is a lie and the truth ain't it. All right, we're going to continue. By the late 16th century, England and Spain were beefing over which version of Christianity was the best when James I ascended to the throne of England in 1603. James, a Protestant, was intent on thwarting Catholic aligned Spain's global domination by getting in on the rapidly growing colonizing industry. In 1534, the English Parliament declared that the country had no superior under God. So nobody other than God, other than the British King Henry VIII, who had split with the Catholic Church so he could marry his side piece. Whole other lesson, plenty of movies on it. So while the Catholic Church had served as an early investor for Spain, Portugal, and the other white empires, Britain didn't have access to the church's seed money. Without the colonizers' version of Shark Tank, the arrogant members of the British elite did not fret. The other countries may have had a head start, but the English were not burdened by faith or by religion. They were free to colonize in the name of a superior higher power, cash money. When Queen Elizabeth granted charters to colonize the North American territories that were quote unquote unclaimed by Christians, the first 4 attempts failed. Now you would think that after failing 4 times that they would have stopped. To be fair, the only reason they failed was because of disease, lack of food, lack of navigation skills, and the inability to convince the natives of English superiority. No one knows what happened to the 4th attempt, aptly named the Lost Colony of Roanoke. But the English kept trying. They truly believed they were going to find the Garden of Eden with trees dripping diamonds and streams filled with gold. There was no way they could leave all those untold riches to the people who lived on the land already. They had to have it. It would be easy to upend the story of America's founding by turning these colonizers into villains. However, the men who hopped on the Susan Constant, the Discovery, and the Godspeed, the 3 ships chartered by King James Joint Stock Virginia Company of London, were too incompetent to be characterized as evil. Although they had never mined, farmed, or built anything in their home country, these clowns were still confident that they could sail across the ocean and conquer an entire continent sight unseen. Talk about the audacity. It was already established back then. Of all the conquering cultures in the world, the English were perhaps the least qualified colonizers. But to their credit, they were gifted in the area of cockiness, if nothing else. Aside from securing the rights to Virginia's gold, silver, and copper mines, the first charter of Virginia charged the colonizers with, quote, propagation of Christian religion to such people, get this, as yet live in darkness and miserable ignorance of the true knowledge and worship of God. Because, of course, if you feel that you have the end all and be all of knowledge, you think that everybody else is in darkness or ignorance. Their other goal was, quote, to bring the infidels and savages living in those parts to quote unquote human civility. Mind you, these are the people who learned how to bathe late in life. They had to be taught. These are the people who have been fighting each other for centuries before this point. These are the people who have been abusing their own children before this point, who are now saying that they're going to come to an unknown continent to bring human civility. In other words, they were going to rob these people of their land, their culture, and history. But in exchange for an entire civilization, the Brits would introduce the natives to white church music and hats with buckles. Seems like a fair trade, no? On April 26, 1607, the 104 English barbarians arrived at the gates of Senecamacca, a territory in modern-day Eastern Virginia, occupied by 31 individually governed tribes. Because they lacked basic geographical fluency and had an enormous amount of hubris, the whites considered the entire east coast of North America, from Canada to Florida, to be Virginia, and declared it their own, ignoring the fact that there was an entire functioning civilization there with a government that would not go down without a fight. This area was ruled by King Wahunsenok, whom the whites called Powhatan, which was actually a term used to describe him and his collective community. As soon as he received word that some pale people were near the shore, Wahunsenaka dispatched a welcoming committee to greet them with 20 or 30 arrows, as he had done with all the previous boatloads of suspicious looking people lurking around his neighborhood. After a brief melee, his boys retreated and decided to wait to make their move. From the moment he and his crew first encountered these pale-faced Philistines, the natives could tell there was going to be trouble. First of all, this group was going to struggle with food. The mid-Atlantic region was going through the worst drought that had been experienced in 700 years, not to mention that their arrival in late April meant it was too late to start planting any crops anyway. Additionally, the spot chosen by the Jamestown colonizers was the worst real estate in the area. Although the brackish water surrounding the settlement on three sides offered protection, by June, they realized that American mosquitoes hit different. Ooh wee. You know they hit different. They also didn't know how hygiene works because for some reason they figured they could relieve their bowels in the same place they gathered their drinking water. Now that's very interesting because if these people were religious and reading the Bible actually mentions something about taking your poo outside of the camp. Clearly, they didn't do that. Perhaps the Virginia Company's biggest mistake was who they sent to conquer the new land. Unlike Portugal and Spain, who had a head start in the white people discovering things trend at the time, England was relatively new to the colonizing game. Portugal and Spain had a class of explorers and soldiers whose full time was conquering. Instead of sending uncouth conquistadors, the British sent wealthy Protestant aristocrats to stake out the area, led by Captain Christopher Newport, and whose ranks included Captain John Smith, a celebrated English mercenary who had been wounded in battle, captured, and sold as a slave. As part of the British expedition, Smith was arrested for treason and imprisoned until the ships landed at Virginia, and the crew unsealed the orders, naming him as the leader of the colony. Despite his having no experience at farming, no experience at governing a colony or leading a people, things were off to a wonderful start. My goodness, it sounds like American government right now. I'm just saying, listen, he was arrested for treason and imprisoned. The ships land, they unseal this note, and he is your president. No experience at farming, check. No experience at governing, check. No experience at truly leading people, check. Wow. We're back at the beginning of the Americas. And we already know how this story goes. When you leave someone who doesn't know what they're doing in charge. I've read an excerpt today. We'll continue on next Tuesday, but I've read an excerpt today of Black AF History. I encourage you to get this book because he's already being comical and audacious. This is written by Michael Harriot. Um, I believe he has a new Substack. It's called Contraband, I believe. Contraband Camp, I think. Follow his Substack. He's got more history that he is detailing and recording in real time. Buy his book. He doesn't understand why he's back on the New York Times bestsellers list. It's because we telling people to buy his book. So please buy his book, support the writing and the history and the telling of Black history by Michael Harriot. All right. All right. We are going to have our talk back now. We're going to do that talk back on YouTube. So stay put if you're on YouTube. Our talk back is going to be over there. If you all want to join us and follow us over to YouTube, the YouTube channel is Life Nation KC. You can find us. We are broadcasting right now. If not, we'll see you again on next Tuesday. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I am your live audio read aloud on Tuesdays. We are also reading aloud every single day over on our YouTube page. This is where we come on Tuesdays. But if you want to join us for daily reading around 11 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 11:30 Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll be there reading live. We cover all kind of topics from health to finance to more Black history to theology to just daily inspiration. So if you're looking for a way to get some reading in, I'll be sharing with you the books that we're reading, and you can join us as well. You can either listen or you can purchase the books and read along and join us for discussion. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you for the stars today. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be light. Take care, Facebook, and I'll see you soon. All right. Ben, I am going to send you the
Yes, this book is so good. I agree. This book is really, really good. He just has a way with words. He's a really, really good storyteller and gets you engaged in the history without losing you in all of the data and the facts, which is why I wanted to make this our new read. All right. And Ben is going to join us for some conversation. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning. For some reason, your
My volume dropped. Is it back now? Can you hear me more better? Can you hear me?
okay.
Can you hear me better?
You know what? It disconnected from my Bluetooth. That's what happened. But anyway,
Okay.
okay. Um, as the text that I sent you when I got this book and started reading it,
Uh-huh.
I had to stop and put it down because I was laughing too hard. This guy he put this together,
He did.
and I'm going to start at the end
Mm-hmm.
because that's the same thing I got.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like our administration.
Mm-hmm. And let me
A
let me
bunch
give
of
a let me give
criminals
let me give a tag.
with no
So
experience.
the page that we stopped reading at was page 17. Okay, so if you are keeping up with us, we stopped reading at page 17. When we come back, we're probably gonna pick back up at 17 and try to get all the way to 24. So if you're keeping up with reading, 17 to 24, or the first 24 pages of the book by next week. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, but I kept telling people
Yeah, it
they
sounds
were
like
calling.
we're in this again.
Yeah, they were calling us savages, everybody else savages.
Mm-hmm.
But one question: Where the civilization began.
In Africa.
Hmm. Where did reading and writing begin?
In Africa.
Where did counting begin?
In Africa.
Oh, what was the first university built?
In Africa, I think.
Wow.
I have to check that one out.
Wow. All these things began in Africa, but we were the savages.
Morocco. The university is in Fez, Morocco. It is the world's oldest university, founded in 859 AD as a religious school and incorporated into Morocco's modern university system.
Hmm. So, and I've had to correct people when they say that when I brought our ancestors here, they didn't know how to read and write.
So
I
yeah,
say no.
Morocco is part of Africa, so yes,
Yeah,
still Africa.
yeah. And I would tell them, no, we knew how to read and write.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't know how to read and write English.
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I can't read and write Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit, but not a whole lot.
And
But,
so over there, you would be considered illiterate.
right.
If you're in a country where you don't speak the language and you don't read the language, you would be considered illiterate there.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but I love this book because he's bringing out so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've been knowing that the history has been twisted.
Yep. And I'm not reading the footnotes, but on every page that we read, there are footnotes to what he's saying,
Hmm.
which is also another nice feature about his work.
Yes. And all through this thing, especially when it's talking about Uncle Junior
Mm-hmm.
and Earth, Wind, and Fire and family stories,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this man talking about my family.
Right. And like I tell people, I'm so blessed right now because like I said last week we were taking care of my great aunt. She had just come back. She spent the entire summer on our family farm of 40 acres, working the ground, getting people who are leasing parts of our acreage set up, um, working on a historical marker and designation for our land because of all this stuff happening, people trying to steal your land through eminent domain and all that. So they're working on the legal parts of, making sure that she protects our land for generations to come. And she comes back, she gets home, she's putting her luggage and stuff down, and she accidentally backs into her luggage and trips over it and breaks her hip. Now, think about that. She's been gone the entire, she's been gone like 2 months, walking around. She's 85 years old, walking around, walking 40 acres, doing all this farming stuff. And then she comes back to her home and trips over the luggage. I know she was 180 mad. Because she like, are you kidding me? I've done this stuff all over the summer and now I come back and now I've put myself out of commission. And so, um, just trying to keep her spirits up about it. And when we talked to the doctor, because she usually keeps her phone on her, but she didn't have her phone on her. So she actually fell without access to the phone and she had to crawl to get to the phone to call for help because she lives alone, because she is a very active senior. But when they got her and they went to do the surgery, the doctor said it was like a perfect, if there was ever a kind of injury to have on your hip, he was like, this was like a perfect kind of injury. There was no fractures around the bone. The only thing that had a crack in it was the ball of her hip joint. So all they had to do was make a small incision, take the ball out, and put a ball in, and that was it.
Okay.
The doctor was like, I've never seen anything like this with a hip injury where just the ball needed to be fixed and replaced.
Hmm.
So we're very, very thankful for that. And she came through the surgery well, but she is one of our history keepers. She is one of our griots for the family. And so it was good this week to see all of the people whose lives that she has touched and impacted and influenced um, come to her aid. Like her room was like full of flowers. You know, she had, and this is another thing I want to shout out and I want to put on record, the black men in my extended family, my cousins, my second cousins, her godson. It's like four black men that were all on it. I mean, like how you are on it, they were on it, you know, checking in on her, doing rounds in the hospital. Um, you know, all of them would take turns to come in for, 4 to 5 hours round the clock because this hospital is 24/7, sitting with her, talking with the doctors, making sure they're doing what they need to do, talking to the nurses. You know, I did my shifts as well. Um, but everything was not on the women. Let me say that again. Let me cue the organ. Dun, 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 dun. Everything was not on the women. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, whoo, thank you.
Yeah.
From moving her to her son flew in from Minneapolis and making sure things were right, getting things from the store for her, making sure she got settled into the rehab facility, which is where I'm going today after this. Um, it was just everything flowed so smoothly with just the family coming together, seeing what she needed, everybody being on board, everybody playing their part, everybody, contributing. And like I said, I know I lost about $1,000 worth of work last week. So any donations would be appreciated. But I was very thankful that I had a schedule that was flexible enough for me to go and be there and do what I needed to do in this moment. Because I know in the past I wouldn't have been able to um, have the schedule that I needed to have. So those are some things that I noticed. And then I noticed that even in all of her, going through, she is still like trying to teach. She's still trying to share. She's still trying to connect family members because some of them I had met for the first time. So she's the connector in the family. And everybody needs those people in your family. Sometimes we take them for granted, but these are the people in your family that say, hey, this is so and so's son. This is so and so's grandson. This is your second cousin, first
Mm-hmm.
remove, da 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 da, and connecting together. Because guess what? When it is her time to transition, she wants her family knit, her family network, her family quilt to be woven tightly together. And I don't think that people appreciate that role enough, that there are people in our family that hold the family quilt together.
Mm-hmm.
And when they drop the quilt, sometimes the threads get unraveled. But you got to pass on the family quilt holding to the next generation. And don't just assume, because she's not assuming anything, don't just assume that they're going to pick it up. Or don't just assume that these connections are going to organically happen. She's like, no, I want you to meet this person. I want you to meet this person. I want y'all to talk. I want y'all to exchange numbers. I want y'all to get each other's addresses. Like, and I'm just like, you supposed to be over here recuperate. And she's like, no, 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 no. Before I go off to sleep again from the medication, let me tell you who this is. Make sure you get their address. Make sure you get their phone number and their contact so that we can keep this quilt together. And I won't
Mm-hmm.
do any more talking, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I got this one aunt. She's the historian.
Mm-hmm.
You ask her any question about anything on my dad's side, she runs it down to you. Now, as far as my immediate family, that would be my sister that's next to me. She's gotten a lot of information from this aunt, and
Mm-hmm.
she's also started her own archive of stuff concerning our family.
Good.
So that would be her. She even has old pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, old pictures
Mm-hmm.
that were taken before she was even born.
Yeah.
See, she has those things, so
That is good
she's
though.
keeping a record.
My favorite
So,
one.
and that's good to have. Now, as far as correcting people, correcting the stories, that would be me.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, that's not the way that happened. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's me. That's me. I am that storyteller that's going to straighten out the story when it's being told wrong.
This is one of my absolute favorite pictures of my great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
They are at one of my great aunt's wedding, and this is on their 40 acres. This is 1967. She's getting married on the family farm, and in the background there is their tobacco station because they grew tobacco, and that's where they would treat the tobacco and process the tobacco. And so um, these are pictures that my great aunts have, and I'm digitizing them slowly, but that's what I mean by, like, if you know where you come from, nobody can adjust your family story for you. Nobody can adjust your family story. People can say all kinds of craziness, they can say what they want to say about you, but it does matter when you know where you come from. Like, my great grandfather is a indigenous man. So when people have this conversation or this arguments about, oh, black people think, all black people think they're Indian, all black people think they're Cherokee. Well, I actually have the documentation that my great grandfather was an indigenous man. He's buried in an indigenous
Mm-hmm.
cemetery. Our whole family is. And nobody can be buried there unless you are indigenous. So when I say that I'm black and indigenous, that's not a fairy tale for me. That's actual documented history. And I want to challenge people um, to go deeper into your family tree. You'd be surprised what you can find on your court and your county records, especially if you are still living in the same region that you grew up in. You'd be surprised what you can find. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
surprised. And so
Well,
don't let anybody discourage you or try to make it like you don't know your own history or you don't know what you're talking about. I was trying to find this other picture that he has here because she was telling me about this picture. Let me see if I can find it. Let me search under farm. There it is. All right, here's another picture of him. He is, this is right when they first built their new house. The new house is behind him. That's his mule. So when people say, That's the house they built. They had what was called a house raising, where the whole community
Mhm.
gets together and helps you build your house. The house is still there. That's the mule. And then she was telling me he built his own cart, so he knew how to do and this is metal. He knew how to do the metal welding and shaping, and he would do that not just for himself, but for other
Mhm.
people in the community that needed carts built. He would build the wheels. So I'm just like, what? I got a little bit of blacksmith in me. Why didn't somebody tell me that before then? Before now? But now that I know, right?
Mhm.
Maybe I will try some metalworking because I've always wanted to try it. But now knowing that my great grandfather actually did that for the community, it makes me want to try that experience to see if I could actually do it.
Mhm.
And so these are the things that, and again, that's him in like the 1940s. This is around the same time that North Carolina had the Klan raids, or what they call the Lumbee clash with the Klan, and my great grandfather was a part of that, of fighting off Klansmen trying to take over their land. What if he had not fought? What if he had not been able to protect his family and his 12 children at the time?
Mhm.
Would we still have our land? Because a lot of people, their land was taken through those raids. And so now we are one of two families in that region that are black that still have their farmland. Everyone else around us is white farm owners. 1950s until now.
Well,
So,
see, that's more history. The
mhm,
history that a lot of people don't know, because literally they did take land from black people,
mhm,
forced them off their own land,
yes,
and took it.
yes.
But they should pull themselves up by their own bootstraps.
No, they
Well, why
were.
can't black people advance on their own? Because when we do, y'all come and take our stuff,
Mhm,
burn it down,
mhm,
flood it out.
mhm. Yep, yep.
Been well ahead of where we are right now had you all not done that.
Mhm.
And that was the problem. That was the problem. And that's still the problem now, because they know if we are those people that would advance well beyond where they are, and that's why they're trying to go backwards.
Yes. And they're trying to go backwards in every way, but we
Mm-hmm.
will continue to resist. And that's why I tell people what we do online is only one part of resistance. A lot of what you're going to be doing, you're going to have to be doing it offline. Just like I talked today about what we have to do to preserve our land as a family, the historical designation of our buildings that are still on the property and things of that nature. There are things you just have to do that have nothing to do with your online presence. You're gonna have to do
Mm-hmm.
that, and you don't have to announce every detail about what you're doing. You don't. And so I don't
No.
get upset when people try to act like, oh, all you do is run a page. Like, okay, that's part of it. That's part of it. Running a page, sharing information, connecting with people is part of the story. It's not the full
Mm-hmm.
picture. And as Harriet Tubman warned us, everybody ain't gonna get it. Everybody's
Nope.
not gonna get it. it's not wise to tell all of your details online. I'm not going to tell you where in North Carolina the farm is. I'm not going to give you the farm number. Like, why would I do that? That's not wise.
Right.
Okay? It's not wise. Um, but this is the space where we make connections with people and we take those connections offline and then you organize. You go look at what's happening in your local community. Where are the farmers markets? Who can I learn from in my local community? Again, my great aunt just connected me with a distant cousin who has 100-acre farm in Maryland.
Mm.
He's an environmental scientist, just became a commissioner in his county around environmental protections, running a 100-acre farm, doing all the stuff I want to do in North Carolina, but he's doing it here in Maryland. Guess who I'm going to be going to learn from? And then come to find out, his great aunts are also working the farm. And then come to find out, the farm was one of the stops on the Underground Railroad, and Harriet Tubman used to stop by all the time. I said,
Hmm.
oh, now it makes sense why I'm here. Now it makes sense why Harriet Tubman came to me in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Now it makes sense. So we just keep on going. We keep following the clues that are a part of our purpose. Don't let anybody convince you that history doesn't matter, that your place in history doesn't matter, because all of us right now are technically history makers. We're history in the making, especially in this unprecedented time. We are the historians, we are the keepers of knowledge. If we don't keep it, who's going to keep it? If
Right.
we don't tell what has been changed, who's going to tell what has been changed? Final thoughts, because you know I could keep going.
Ah. History. Our history is important. In fact, our history is American history, true American history.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, they don't want the truth out because they want to paint themselves as the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to erase that. See, because they know if too many people find out the truth,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to make them look bad. They also know that their children will become woke. Their children are going to want to do something about what their ancestors
Yeah,
did.
because really what that means, I know in our terms we mean awareness, but for them, woke means their children will become empathetic. Their children will become empathetic to the cause of justice and they will want to make things right. That's why they're
Mm-hmm.
anti woke, because they don't want to make things right. Because in many cases, to make things right means the end of their domination and control over everyone else.
Yeah. But
They don't want equality, they want
let me
domination.
say this. Make it real plain. They don't want their children to be obedient to God
Yeah, that too.
because He speaks about repentance and reparation. They don't want that. So we got to keep our children hidden under these lies and teach them what we want them to know. We want to indoctrinate them, which they say Black history is indoctrination. That's what they're calling it when it's actually the truth. Oh, one more thing. I got, and I'm done. I'm done. Now you were speaking about blacksmithing.
Mm-hmm.
Now Mr. DeSantis
Mm-hmm.
said that slaves learned trades like blacksmithing here in America
Mm-hmm.
when it actually started in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
by the Hittites
Mm-hmm.
who were black.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to come to Africa and grab people that don't know anything and I got to teach them everything?
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to get those ones that I know how to do everything, which is why we didn't grab the first Africans that we came in contact with
Mm-hmm.
because we knew the specific ones we were looking for that already knew how to do everything. All we had to do was bring them over here and put them to work.
I mean, African history tells you they were also taking the princes. They started
Yeah.
with the skill. They started with the agricultural people. They started with the warriors. They were taking warriors. They were taking agricultural people. They were taking the skilled people like the blacksmiths. But eventually, they got to the princes and the princesses.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they start taking nobility, African nobility,
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted people who already were skilled. As Cicero
Mm-hmm.
said, if you're gonna enslave somebody, don't enslave the British because they don't know nothing.
Right.
So that kind of debunks that whole, oh, we were the masters of doing and knowing how to do things. All right. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. Pastor Ben, I want to thank you for coming on and co hosting and chopping it up with me. Um, if you are interested in joining me in conversation, you can send me an email at thedaringdialogues@gmail.com, and I will add you to my email so that if you want to join me, I will be able to send you the join link and you can join me for live conversation. All right. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what?
Light.
Light. Let's get those, keep our family quilts together. Let's continue to network. Let's continue to value and cherish the griots and the storytellers in our families. Take care, be well, and most importantly, be light.